Welcome into another exciting episode of Real Biz. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is the owner and operator, founder of Raven CFO, Dustin Young. Dustin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bubba, how's it going?
It's going well, man. I appreciate you taking some time for me today. We're going to talk about your business, but you've also got an inspiring story to share. Before we get into that, I want you to give us a little bit of your backstory, and then we're going to pick it up right around the time of your diagnosis and really get into the weeds there. So the floor is yours, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm born and raised in Texas. I like to say that. I've actually been in Arizona most of my life, but I was in Texas until I was junior high school age. Got out of high school and went to work for my family in construction and real estate, and did that for 7 or 8 years. Kind of a little bit of a wild story, like you said. I just got to this point, in my career there. I was managing a lot. I was VP of finance, so I was managing the whole accounting and finance side of things. I was also over IT and some marketing and doing a little bit in the field as well. So I've got a lot of different experience from that. But I got to this point where, just wasn't feeling it anymore. Wasn't super happy. I didn't feel like I was fulfilled. And so, I sat down at dinner with my brother and was like, "Hey, I think I got to be done here." And this is in July of 2024, or the end of June of 2024. Just to give you some perspective, how the timeline works here is kind of nuts. So basically quit my job, kind of get fired at the same time. He's like, "Hey, if you're not happy, then get the heck out of here," And I'm like, "All right, I guess that's what's happening." And so fast forward a couple of days, it's like my last day in the office, and I had been having these migraines, all right? Having migraines for a couple of months. I'd gone to an emergency room. They told me, just take some ibuprofen. I was like, okay, that's kind of bullcrap, but whatever. Finally get to a doctor that orders an MRI for me. I get the MRI, and while I'm in the tube, the technician is like, "Hey, just stay there for a minute. We're done with the scan, but I got to call your doctor. We're seeing something." I'm like, "Cool, that probably isn't a real good thing." But honestly, my mind is just pretty calm still. And so they take me out of the tube. I'm face first. For those that have never done like a brain scan, you're in face first. Your head is kind of strapped to the table, so you really can't move at all. They call it the football helmet. And I get out and get on the phone with the doctor. Doctor's like, "Hey, you need to go straight to the emergency room right now. You're going to have brain surgery." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And yeah, call my wife. You can imagine how that went. I actually call my brother, who I was working for, that I had just basically quit working for. And said, "Hey, I need you to take me to the hospital right now." We were super close. He was kind of, he's my big bro. And yeah, I ended up not actually having surgery that day. Had a hard time finding the right surgeon. Had brain surgery 2 weeks later for a baseball-sized tumor right here in my right frontal lobe. You can see the scar if you're watching this, but so that's a lot of detail. A couple weeks after surgery, I get diagnosed with grade 4 terminal brain cancer called glioblastoma. My specific one is called astrocytoma grade 4. They're essentially the same because of the severity. And went straight into chemo and radiation for 6 weeks every day. I had to drive into a clinic. That was kind of intense. I don't know. Most people aren't familiar with the radiation process when it involves the brain, but they make this mask that it's actually molded to your face, okay? And so they take this boiling hot plastic material, mold it over your face, which is not very comfortable, and they attach that to a table for about 20, 30 minutes while it dries. And that's how they create the mask for you to use every day. And so I go in every day, Monday through Friday, for radiation, and they take that mask, they it gets like buttoned onto the table. You can't really swallow, you can't talk, you can't move at all. And then they just have this X-ray looking machine that kind of, moves around your head every day. It was pretty difficult for the first couple of weeks, and then, got used to it after that. So I was pretty lucky. But yeah, fast forward to now, I started my own business. We had a GoFundMe and everything that we had to live off of for months. We're still young kids. I probably didn't mention that I think he was 6 months old, my son, when I got diagnosed. He was 6 or 7 months old. And he's now 2. We have made it, in terms of I'm alive, we are together, we are doing our best, we are traveling, we're trying to have fun and make the most of our time. And now I specifically work with construction companies, because that's my background and that's what I know. And so I'm pretty good at being able to take accounting and take operations and align those two things and make them work together in a way that actually makes sense. Most guys in construction, just like you were saying, Bubba, earlier, you were telling me about you're good at what you do, right? You're good with the music and the media, but when it comes to accounting, you're like, screw this. And construction guys are the same. Everyone's good at what they know, but the second you add on, like, oh crap, the business aspect, you've got freaking accounting, you've got marketing, you've got legal crap to deal with, you've got technology, and then you start adding employees and you got freaking HR to add in there. It's like, nah, I don't want to do that. So
what a journey, Dustin. It's mind blowing. And I'm so happy that you are here and that we get to have this conversation. For most people, starting a business is the scariest thing they've ever done, leaving their job, and probably for you as well, that it was the scariest thing you'd ever done until, later that week. And then having to go through everything that you've been through, emergency surgery, the chemo and radiation on top of that. And I feel like now that experience that you have and this story that you have to offer people, it makes like everything that these owner operators that you're dealing with, it really puts it into perspective, like what they're having to do. Because I know for, myself and others that are business owners, it can be scary to kind of give up a little bit of control. You feel that you have to do everything, even if you're not good at it. You feel like you just have a stranglehold on everything, and that is somehow giving up a little bit of control, makes you less of a man or less of an operator, and it's actually the opposite, right? To give up a little bit of control and to get a little bit of your time back actually can make you a much better and stronger person.
Absolutely. Yeah. Delegating sucks. It's so hard to do, but if you can figure it out, like it's the key to growth and scaling.
What do you find now in your experience of actually working now for the last, I would say probably the last year or less of having your business now going, right? Like clean bill of health was obviously the first thing after kind of, having quit your job and working, with your brother and family business. And I know that, we talked pre-show that, your father was in the construction trades and running this business. So, really it was, I don't know if it was a continuation of the family business and your dad's company with your brother or not, but what is the hardest thing in, your experience dealing with operators that is kind of that barrier? What's like that first barrier with everyone to get over?
I think what we just talked about, your first hire, like trying to trust people to do what you're really good at, like to have them do it for you is so scary. It's if you're running an excavation or grading company, it's not as big of a deal, right? Like, or a plumbing company and you're just hiring a part-time laborer, okay, whatever. But if you're going to hire a salesman, someone that's going to be talking to your customers for you, or if you're going to be hiring an estimator, someone that's going to be pricing and bidding and winning jobs for you, like you're handing them a lot. And those things really affect your business, right? Like one of your sales guys says something dumb to a customer, and that could really hurt your reputation, or your estimator bids a job completely wrong and you end up losing $100,000 on one job, and it kind of sinks you for a little bit. Like, that's a big deal. And those scenarios, I think, really just run through those guys' minds. Like, they don't want to see that happen, but they also don't know how to mitigate those issues.
What is the one thing that you are trying to help these these owners or CEOs or founders of companies mostly that you're working with? What is the one thing that you're trying to give to them?
Honestly, a little more time at home and a little less stress.
And that is, that's from your lived experience, having a father that was a founder and operator in his own right, and very good, I think, at what he was doing. And also maybe not being the best father that he could have been because he's just not committing time to his family.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing for me. I was doing the same thing back when I was at my job, just grinding as much as I could and trying to make as much money as I could. And that kind of became the priority. And that was a thing in my family. And it's not even just my family. Like, I see it everywhere. People prioritize making money, having nice things, and I guess that's okay, for some, but for me, like, it all happened so fast, but I just went full 180. And I think there's a lot of other people that actually want that as well. They just don't really know how to get it.
Did that shift in mentality for you, did it come before you left the job, or did that come with the perspective of your diagnosis and subsequent treatment?
It was starting to come before I quit. I realized that I was not finding fulfillment in what I was doing. And part of that was because it was taking me away from the things that I really loved, being at home and spending time with my family and making memories with them. And yeah, like it started, but as soon as that diagnosis hit and I had surgery, it was just, that was all I could think about. There was nothing that was more important. So I had no choice but to just figure that out.
No, the perspective gained from seeing maybe not the light at the end of the tunnel, but realizing that you are headlong in the tunnel right now, and fighting for your life in so many ways. Anyone who receives that cancer diagnosis or any real, major health diagnosis that puts the end much closer than the beginning, and that the perspective change is massive. And I know that has to help you in your daily, working with these founders now, of going, look, I'm not just telling you these things. I have been there. I am telling you that you're going to, in those moments, you're going to wish that you spent more time at your kids' ball games or playing Barbies with your daughter, or, because you don't get that time back. There's
Right.
always more money to be made. There's always another problem to solve in the world, but the problems at home that maybe you can avoid, and having been a child of a founder, I think gives you a unique perspective as well. But even that didn't stop you from running headlong into the same trouble, right?
Yeah. Like you said, it really is the only thing you can't get back. And there's guys that will come to me that want to work with me, but if they are the type that just prioritizes money over everything else, I typically don't work with them. because I've got to be able to still find fulfillment in what I'm doing, like as in helping them do that thing as well, if that makes sense. And so a lot of times there's not alignment there. Some people just want to go make millions and millions of dollars, and that's great. Go make all the money. I'm going to help you do that too. But I really want people that have something that they care about that's greater than the money, really, which sounds ridiculous coming from a finance guy. You'd expect me to just be talking numbers here, but it's just not how it goes. There's so many other things that are involved. And I actually think the relationship there, if things are going better at home, they're probably going better at work. You're probably making more money. But if you're making a bunch of money and you're not, your relationships at home aren't good, then I think it just falls apart a lot easier. And so I try to keep, a lot of people say there's no balance, and I get that. Like, that is a tough thing. Like, I'm not saying that there's a perfect balance between home and work. But there is attention to be given to both. And I think there is a right amount of attention to be given to both. And you can overdo it in one area and underdo it in the other. So that's some of the things we try to figure out. As I'm working with these guys, it's actually where I start. Where do you want to be in 10 years? How much time do you want to spend with your family in 10 years so that we can set this business up now so you can still be doing that instead of, oh, well, I want to make $30 million in 10 years. I'm like, okay, cool. How does everything else fit into that? We kind of reverse engineer.
Yeah, you're almost more executive life coach than finance guy at times. And I think for you working with newer founders, it's nice to build that foundation of that, to say, look, it's very easy to come in and you're going to listen to all the business coaches that, tell you to grind, and you have to be maniacal about the business and sell. And, just like all the very stereotypical kind of, sales and marketing ploys that you can get. But very few people talk about the sacrifices that you're going to make in your family and personal life to get there. And I'm not saying that you got to be out with your friends every weekend or that you need to be taking vacations with the kids once a month, but you do need to prioritize that time, even if it's down to a daily regimen of, making sure that you are, tucking the kids in at night. And those moments, while they may not be a huge part of your day, you have to realize how much it is a part of their day, and missing those moments that you're going to miss those big parts of your kid's life. And maybe it's not birthday parties and big championship ball games. You can miss a few of those things, but it's really those early years that you're spending and that time that you're spending. Maybe it's taking those 15 minutes of your morning and prioritizing taking the kids to school and dropping them off or picking them up from school that become more important, and having those non-negotiables rather than a dollar amount or, business meeting that you're prioritizing over that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely not saying, spend 5 hours a day with your kid and try and work a little bit and build a business. Like, that's not going to work, right? There is grind. Definitely have to grind to get it to happen. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Even if it's just 15 minutes, and those first few years of their lives are what's most important. I missed basically the first year of my son's life, from working the first 6 or 7 months to being down from brain surgery for a little bit after that, but even then, after brain surgery, I was at least home, right? Like, I was home, I could see him, I could hug him and talk to him. And, but when I'm at work, I just can't. And so just fitting in a little bit of time. When I was in When I was in high school, this is kind of a funny story, and my parents may listen to this, but I was actually known as the kid with no parents. And part of me took a little pride in that because I could just do whatever I wanted, you know. And I had a lot of fun as a kid. I never did anything really dumb or stupid. But at the same time, I don't actually want that for my kids, you know. And I don't know if I'll be here for when they're that age or not. I was The doctors originally told me I'd live for 12 to 18 months. I actually just hit 18 months like 3 days ago. And I feel great right now. So
Yeah, you're beating the odds already, Dustin.
I'm beating it, but at the same time, like, we have no idea, right? Um, and so, but whether it's me or someone else, whatever, not the point of the story. I don't want that for my kids. And if I could go back in time, I would try harder to have been there for the first year of my son's life, because I think that's just such an important bonding time to have with them, even if they're not going to be able to recall those memories down the road.
No doubt that they mean something. And I know a lot of us think that, oh, well, you know, we have them for 18 years. You really don't. You maybe have them for 10, you know, you maybe
Yeah.
have them for 12, 13, 14. By the time they're teenagers, and I'm dealing with that now as my boy just turned 13, is that they kind of, you know, they're not fully fledged, but they are to a lot of degree like who they're going to be moving forward. And those teenage years, they're going to desire more freedom and they're not going to want you around. So, especially people with young children, carving out little bits of time for them. And my kid, I mean, I'm the last person to criticize someone for grinding. I work 12, 18-hour days sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I'm out in my studio a lot, but I carve out that 10 minutes in the morning. We're very lucky that, you know, we live very close to our school, small town. I get to walk them to school and I get to walk them home. Their mother works at the school. So we're very fortunate that we get to spend a lot of time. But I didn't get to do that while I was working at the factory, right? Like I wasn't getting to do that. I wasn't there when they went to school. I was already gone. And when they came home, they were already here as well. And it was something that I was missing. And it was worth taking the pay cut to build something on our own so that I could be available to do those things and maybe living on less for a few years while we did build it. Now, there was also an, you know, supernatural confidence in me that like I was going to build this business into something. I don't know many people that, you know, quit the guaranteed income to be a podcaster. I always had a much larger vision of what this podcast and this network and everything was. In a lot of ways, Dustin, 2 years ago when I quit my job, I saw these conversations happening, right? I was having conversations like this with people. They just weren't on camera.
Yeah.
And I've realized now after, 500 plus interviews or whatever it is now, I've never kept track because it doesn't really matter. It's the impact that these conversations have had on my life, on my, guests' lives, and then subsequently on all the people that get to listen to these. And that to me, and the impact that it's going to have on my children's lives, because dad's around a little bit more. And when he's home, he's a lot more present. And when I'm spending that time, I'm with them mentally and physically and emotionally, instead of kind of being checked out. And I think that's what's important. It's not necessarily always the amount of time, but it's how invested you are into that time that you're spending as well.
Yeah. Quality over quantity, man. That same concept applies pretty much everywhere in life and in business, get picky with your clients if you can and if you want to, right? Like if that makes sense. If you're not in the volume game, then consider yourself lucky because you can weed out the customers that you don't want to be spending time with, that you don't want to surround yourself with. Spend more quality time with your kids. Yeah. I mean, and there's days where I do the same thing. I can't say I have as much energy as I used to, but if I go work a 12-hour day right now, I come home and I'm dead, I'm drained. And so there's definitely days where I'm not spending quality time with them. And it's just something that I'm continually trying to get better at. That's all we can ask for, right?
Dustin, what's the most important thing that you would like people to get out of, this conversation, out of working with you? What's your most important piece of advice, having lived through what you have and moving forward? Be this a legacy, you're on borrowed time essentially at this point, right? What's
Yeah.
one piece of advice that you'd either like to leave for not just our listeners, but maybe your children as they listen to this in the future?
Yeah. Honestly, don't wait to make change. If there's change that needs to happen, just get it done. The longer you wait, you really just don't know what's going to happen in the future. It's funny because I listened to a podcast years ago. I don't remember who it was. I don't remember the exact person they were talking about, but it was about a police officer that kept saying, once I retire from being a cop, I'm going to take this vacation with my family. You can guess how that story went. Cop retires, dies within like a week, never gets to take that vacation, never gets to do anything with his retirement because they just put it off. And that's my advice for anyone listening. Be it people in the music industry or in just business or wherever you are in life. If there's change that needs to be made, just don't wait to do it. Whatever's in the way, figure it out, make it now. If you need to be spending more time with your kids, figure it out now. You don't know what could happen to them. You don't know what could happen to you. That's it.
Dustin, where can people get a hold of you to work with you and, follow your journey as well? And I'm really appreciative of your time today. So go ahead and share whatever you need to and plug the business, and I'll let you get out of here.
Yeah. My website, ravencfo.com. If you are a construction business owner doing about $3 to $40 million in annual revenue and might have some issues with cash flow or profitability, or just need additional help on the finance and ops side, check out my website, ravencfo.com. You can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. Dustin Young on LinkedIn.
Dustin, I'm so glad that we got to take some time today. I was completely moved by your story when we got to chat, off camera. And I thought it was important to, at the very least, to make a little archive for your children in the event that you aren't here in the future. Now, I hope that you are, and I hope that the clean bill of health is coming your way one day. I know that it's a daily battle, I'm sure. But I think that you're inspiring. I think that you can inspire not just business owners, but anyone who's listening that feels overwhelmed and anxious about their own futures. I think you've done a lot and brought a lot of value, not just to them, but also to me as well. So thank you for taking some time to be on Real Biz today. And thank you for being part of the scene.
Thanks, Bubba. So good to be here. Good to talk to the audience. And, I just want to leave one last little thing, if that's okay. I'm no expert speaker. Everyone here probably knows that, but hopefully, the things that I can share can at least be of benefit regardless of that.